there's still just no unanimous take on that, and I'm kind of concerned that there's not going to be any real changes to the portal windows anytime soon, because it seems like a lot of different people are on different pages with that right now. But what does seem to be clear is that we're going to the three consistent locked in rivals, and then the rotation of a 9-game conference schedule once Texas and Oklahoma enter this conference. Is that about where you're at? And explain what you did with your graphic. I like it.
That's what I'm thinking for sure. So the one thing we know is the pods are not going to happen. So I'm popping champagne over here. I was not a pod fan because I'm just like, what if you get in a weak pod?
Not podcast, not like the Chase Thomas podcast. Those pods, yeah. You're a big pod guy.
Big pod fan of that, for sure. But yeah, I was so against the pod. So I'm glad it's basically down to either the 1-7 schedule rotation, which would keep it at an 8-game conference schedule. Which that's the one thing that worries me is like the SEC has been so just adamant about keeping that 8-game conference schedule that they might go with that 1-7 rotation, which is the one locked opponent, and then rotate the other 7 in, 7 out. So you're playing everybody in 2 years. I do love both of these formats. Everybody is playing everybody twice in a 4-year span. Like, and that is just awesome. Like, we're all in the same conference now, if that's the case. So, but yes, I'm in favor of the 3-6 model where you have the 3 locked rivals and then the 6 teams rotate in and out. And then you would have to go to a 9-game conference schedule in order to do that. But I just feel like a 9-game conference schedule, like everyone's going to have a gauntlet for sure. It's just, it's going to be insane, but it's going to be worth it. It's just going to be a way better product for the fans. Like, you could see some teams shy away from some of those big-time out-of-conference games because of a 9th SEC game. Like, I'm not crazy about that. Like, are Georgia and Oregon scheduling this game? Or is Florida willing to go to Utah if they're playing 9 conference games? Like, I don't know. We might see less of those. But I also kind of think it's worth it because the SEC is just that good that it's like we're going to have more compelling SEC games. I wonder if a casualty could also be those locked rivals that teams have at the end of the season with Florida State and Georgia Tech and Clemson. If you're now playing 9 conference games, I do worry a little bit about those games going away. But for Georgia and Georgia Tech, it's like, yeah, whatever, get rid of the game. I don't think anyone cares. But Florida State, South Carolina, Clemson, even Kentucky, Louisville, like those would be bad games to get rid of. And I think ultimately that's why the 3-6 model just works so much better than the 1-7. Because if you go to 1-7, everyone only has one direct rival, right?
Yeah.
Like who's Tennessee's biggest rival? Like Florida, Alabama?
All time it's Alabama.
Neither of those teams would be Tennessee would not be their first rival, right? Georgia and Florida would be locked up. Auburn, Alabama would be locked up. So Tennessee's locked rival is Vanderbilt. It's like you're not getting Georgia Tennessee, or you're not getting Georgia Tennessee every year. You're not getting Florida Tennessee every year. You wouldn't be getting Alabama LSU every year. Like there's some of those games, Georgia Auburn. There's some of those games, like regardless of what we do to the schedule, like we have to keep those traditional rivalries. I think that's kind of the best thing college football has going for it. Like these rivalries are kind of the, I don't know, just the phrase, the blood life of the sport. I might be getting
the lifeblood.
Lifeblood. There you go. Getting that wrong. But yeah, I just feel like rivalries are that important. I think if you went 1-7, like you're still playing everybody twice. You're playing everybody in a 2-year time frame.
Yeah.
But just some of those games, like we're already going to lose. Like, yeah, what you said with my scheduling format I sent you, like you're already going to lose some games like Georgia, Tennessee. Like, just because there's going to be casualties, like with Tennessee's locked rivals being Vanderbilt, Florida, and Kentucky. Like you're going to try to keep as many of those, like with Georgia playing Florida, Auburn, and South Carolina. Like you can keep a lot of the tradition that we have, and instill everybody playing everybody in 2 years. So I think ultimately the 3-6 model is going to be what wins out. I think that's what kind of has the most momentum at this point.
Well, based on your locks and your like lock 1, lock 2, lock 3, for what you are putting out. I agree with the vast majority. I do think when you think about it, who do you like? For me, I think the team that gets kind of screwed, where you look at it and you're like, oof, that's rough for them, is Texas. Texas, you're like, oh God, if your locked in rivals are Arkansas, A&M, and Oklahoma, that's just like your locked in rivals, and you rotate everybody else. You're like, oh God, it could be really ugly really quickly for the Longhorns.
No, without a doubt. But it's like you go looking through a lot of these, and it's like Alabama's got Auburn, LSU, and Ole Miss. Georgia's got Florida, Auburn. South Carolina's not as strong, but like, and I think that's what makes this model so good. Is like, I think if you look at all these, Kentucky's clearly got the weakest
Yes.
locks of the three. South Carolina, Vanderbilt, but you have Tennessee in there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, then if you look at who there's in their rotation, like their schedule's a gauntlet still. It's like you're going to have Oklahoma and Florida and Texas on your schedule, and then Alabama and Georgia and LSU the next year. It's like, so you're not going to hide from anybody with this rotation in general. And I think just having the locked rivals, like there's certain teams that just have to play every year. Like the Golden Boot, LSU, Arkansas. Like, they're not each other's number one rival, but that's a game that just you got to play that game. Like, it
would be interesting though. You have Tennessee dropping Alabama as one of their three, and I would be pretty surprised if Alabama is not one of the three for Tennessee. I would be surprised.
And it's tough once you're going through all of them. It's tough to know exactly, because I feel like Tennessee's number one rival feels like Florida to me. Like, that's just kind of.
I mean, it's just the most pressure-filled. Like, that's the most pressure-filled game. But I would say, I mean, I guess it probably is. I think it's the most hated rival. I don't know if it's the best, but Tennessee fans hate Florida more than any other fan base. So it's the most passionate.
More than anything, I feel like Tennessee feels like Kentucky's biggest rival, right? Like, who are Kentucky's rivals?
Kentucky's biggest rival is Tennessee. Like, but Tennessee's biggest rival is not Kentucky. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's like the Mad Men scene where it's like, I feel sorry for you, and it's like, and Don Draper's like, I don't think about you at all, and that's how it is with Tennessee, Kentucky, where it's like, no, there's just
exactly. So it's like, who do you put as Kentucky's locked rivals? Like Vanderbilt's locked rivals, right? Like Tennessee, Vanderbilt just has to be one.
Who did you have for Kentucky?
State. Kentucky has South Carolina, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because like you could sell me on Missouri getting in there. Maybe as like give them a Midwest type deal, but I don't know. Like Kentucky, there's not really a great answer, but I think I would probably, if I had to guess what the three is, and we're going to three, I would guess Tennessee's is Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Alabama. That's what I would guess. I'd put a pretty healthy amount down on those.
See, so no Florida, Tennessee. Mm-mm. See, I don't know about that.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing. Like, it's not what I want. What I'm saying is what I think is going to be the three.
Yeah, I could see it. I feel like Florida. Florida. Tennessee,
I'm not gonna lie. Getting Florida and Georgia off my yearly calendar doesn't sound that bad for a couple of years.
Tennessee football, like without playing Florida and Georgia every year, like there's something that just doesn't sit right about that with me. Like Oklahoma's another tough one because it's like.
But if I get to punt like a Georgia game for an Oklahoma coming to Knoxville, like I don't. We're Tennessee fans. Like, if you get 9 conference games out of this and at least 1 or 2 good non-conference, like that's just an amazing schedule. People won't harp on losing some of those locked in 4 to 5 rivalries if you're getting more of that diversity, because I think that's what people want. Like, they want more of those games, but it's critical that those are not neutral site.
For sure. But I think the one thing is, it's like, I'm done with like the good faith scheduling. Like. Four games, just too much room, too much wiggle room for like some teams want to be competitive with these 4 games and others just want to find 4 wins. So removing the power from these athletic departments on like finding wins against Middle Tennessee State that they can get, like I'm all for that. And so having a 9th conference game, I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. If the SEC wants to go to 9 conference games or if they want to stay at 8. And I mean, you know, you could make a good argument either way. I think I think losing some of these rivalries is too much to. It's just too big of a loss, personally. Like, we're just seeing so many changes in college football. Like, Auburn and Georgia have played for like 126 years in a row or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't be ending rivalries like that every year. Like they obviously would play every other year, but I don't know. We can't be doing that.
Yeah. It's time for our ACC conference winner conversation, Matt Graham. We've done the Big Ten. We've done the SEC. Now it's time to do the ACC.